Good morning, my ladies, audience, viewers, listeners. Welcome today to another episode of Bold TV. Beautiful, outstanding ladies with disabilities, where we talk about disabilities and issues related to disabilities. This program is being powered by Bold Heart Initiative. It comes to us every Saturday, 10 a.m., where we sensitize the world about disabilities and issues with and disabilities and how you can cope with it. Today, I'm going to talk about an interesting topic on disability and the built environment. But before I go into that deeply, I would like the women in the house to introduce themselves. But before then, one more thing. I would like to say we are still celebrating our anniversary. This is our second year anniversary. We've been here for 2 years by God's grace, and we have been doing so well. And this is our month of June. So we've been here trying to see how we can sensitize the world on disabilities and even persons with disabilities on how to cope with the issues. So before then, if you enjoy the program, which I know you do, you can partner with us by sponsoring our subscriptions, share our videos. We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. Today's topic is disability and the beauty environment. And I would like the women in the house to introduce themselves before I deep down into today's topic. I'll start with myself. Osaki Teresa Georgie. I reside in Port Harcourt, a member of Bold Heart Initiative, work with Fair Care Foundation. I'm a polio warrior. I'm so glad and happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Frecky. Hi, everyone. My name is Frecky Andresian. I'm based in Port Harcourt in Rivers State. I use a wheelchair from spinal cord injury, founding executive director of Fair Care Foundation, a member of Bold Heart and a public health professional. Yes, happy second anniversary, Bold TV.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Afioritum. I'm based in Uyu, a member of Bold Heart Network, medical lab scientist by profession. I use a wheelchair due to spinal cord injury, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's good to be two. So happy second anniversary to all of us on Bold TV.
Morning, everybody. My name is Abiosef Baladi. I am Executive Director, Angel Wings Global Freedom Foundation. I'm an author. I use a wheelchair. I live in Ibadan. Nice to be here and happy second year anniversary to us.
This topic is is a crucial one, something that we need to know, disability and the built environment. So we're trying to work with the World International Day, which was 5th of June, we celebrated World Environmental Day, which is our environment. And it says is to create awareness and environmental protection, focusing on sustainable in harmony with nature. But we're going to talk about two things now: the natural environment and the built environment. Now, natural environments are those things that comes naturally, that we came to meet: the sea, wind, everything you can think about that did not built by man, but by God himself. Now, the built environment is infrastructure, structural buildings, things made by man, either with technology or without technology, but it's been invented and invented by man. And that's our own today because of our topic on disability and the built environment, how we see it, how we cope with it. So my first question will go in the form of when you hear the built environment, what comes into your mind, or what are you referring? What do you think that we're going to talk about because of the built environment?
Okay, when we talk about the built environment, I think the word is almost self-explanatory. It means anything that is man-made, that is constructed either through technology or manually. The built environment just refers to anything that is not part of nature, but more often than not is taken from nature and, constructed or made into any device or structure or infrastructure that, can be used by man.
Okay, I don't know if there's any more to add. Like Afyong said, it's self-explanatory. When you look at the environment, you have the natural environment, and then you have the built environment, which is an intentional construction of what exists to suit, man's need, whether in the now or in the future. So it has to do, like you said, with anything that has to do with structures, building infrastructure, support system, anything, even transport, moving from a place to a place. That is the environment that is man-made.
My next question is going to be also, it says, considering the interaction between disability and the built environment, what has been your disability experience in your city and immediate environment? What is all about the environment and you? What's your experience?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, as for me talking about built environment and disability, it's been a little bit not so inclusive. It's been hard because when we're talking about built environment, we are talking about buildings that have steps. We're talking about roads that are rugged, that are not wheelchair friendly. We're talking about steps that move from one spot to the other and things like that. And so with this kind of environment, we, as a person with disability who has a wheelchair, it's been hard, and getting from point A to point B can sometimes be very daunting and impossible. So yeah.
Still on that same topic, because I never had an experience. Everywhere right now we have ramps. It's easier to say that there are ramps in almost every structure in Port Harcourt. But the truth is that these ramps are still not friendly, especially with persons with disability. So the physical, like wheelchair user or crutches user, the ramp is not what you work on it on your own confidently. You still need an assistant of that sort. So the disability and the built environment is still having like a struggling setup. It's not as clear as it ought to be. Where there's a ramp, you need no help, you just move on it smoothly without being scared or looking for an assistant.
When it comes to the built environment, especially in Nigeria, we are way behind, international standards of of having an inclusive environment, especially for persons with disabilities. Not just people that use mobility devices, people who are visually impaired are not accommodated, especially when it comes to, certain infrastructural infrastructure, such as maybe buildings. And it's really funny that maybe you go to a government parastatal or office, and then you go there and it's a place you have a right to be in, and for something important, and you can't even access the building. Let's take, for example, when I registered for the national identity card. The first time I did it, the building where this, the data capturing is done is at a federal secretariat, and the building has 3 stories, very steep staircases, no ramp, no, even from the entrance, you can't even, I needed people to carry me just to get into the building. No ramp, no nothing. And they didn't have, according to them, the device downstairs was bad. And so everybody had to go to the 3rd floor, the last floor, to be able to be captured. And I had to be carried up to that 3rd floor. And the card has expired since 2020. And when I asked how I would renew it, I was told I had to still go through the same process again and have to go up to the 3rd floor. I told them, let's rest. So now I'm thinking of getting my PVC. I think it's easier. Things like this make it difficult. Even at work, you go to work. The first time I think I've shared that experience here where I actually fell at work, not once, but twice, because the entrance that just had a single level of a step did not have a ramp. It was after I fell, I now had to write to the management and tell them that they had to put a ramp there, not just for me, because sometimes patients come in who are not, they can't walk. and they need to get in. You have elderly people who are not, their knees will not let them use staircases, are not friendly for them. And so, simple things like this, and these things don't even cost much. Buildings are constructed and then, no, they are thinking of putting elevators in Nigeria with power supply. Meanwhile, you can simply put a concrete ramp to any floor that anybody can access, whether disabled or not. So these are simple things that can be done, but in every place you go to, you find that most of this, you face all this, you're excluded from, events where you have a right to be in. Why? Because the environment is not accessible.
Speaking of the built environment, I just want to bring attention to, because when we consider the built environment, taking away from just structural, structures like buildings, and considering things that have to do with, like, for example, the communication, because it's part of the built environment. Persons who are hearing impaired have continued to be excluded from information access because, man-made communication within our environment is not inclusive. And, the other day I saw on social media where a disability advocate, was really lamenting the woes of communication via television that is devoid of sign language interpretation and no closed captioning. The good thing about social media is that no matter what social media you use, thanks to the improvement that came with COVID-19, you can hit the CC button and closed captioning is automatically done. But for terrestrial TV, it is not so. And so the conscious effort for national television authorities or persons who are involved in broadcasting to produce or to have sign language interpretation in that corner of the box is very important. In this our man-made environment, anything that excludes a person within what man has done in this environment is exclusive. And that's what a lot of persons with disabilities face. So I just wanted to add that, when we think of the environment, yes, we think about the structure, but within the environment, there is mobility, there is movement. Within the environment, there is communication. And when disability interact with the environment, a lot of times, especially in Nigeria, there is exclusion. In fact, our environment has continued to aggravate the disabling process for many persons with disabilities, because I always say that disability is not just focused on the impairment, but has a lot to do with how that impairment interacts with the environment. So where a person's environment is not accessible, where a person is cut off from the environment because it's made by man, that person disablement is aggravated, and that's what we see in our Nigerian society. I feel mentioned the law, the Prohibition Act against discrimination of persons with disability. And just to express that when it was signed into law in 2019, a period of 5 years was given for public buildings to become accessible. As it is, we like fire on the mountain. And so it's like everybody just dancing around, waiting for who would now begin to find them for them to do it. So I know we'll come to that, but I don't think we'd have to wait for 5 years to be over for buildings, especially public buildings and service buildings, to be accessible. I mean, for crying out loud, why won't a hospital be accessible? That one blows my mind, because I'm like, anybody who is coming to a hospital is somebody who needs help. And so the person should be given the ease to be able to access any form of medical care. And then you have hospitals that don't have ramps, don't have access to persons, to the public. So yes, when it comes, especially in Nigeria, and our interaction with the environment, disability and environment, it really is sad, and it aggravates and makes even the disabling process worse for persons with disability across board, across clusters.
Thank you very much for that great contribution on that. So our next question will be on what are some coping strategies for PWDs, persons with disabilities, in Nigeria building environment?
So coping mechanisms for persons with disability in our built environment in Nigeria. Well, there are not very many anyway, other than there are many, but there are not very many at the same time, because because it's a bit confusing, because when you have a country where you cannot move from point A to point B, and You can't do anything without someone helping you. And especially now, thank God, COVID is nearly over. It's over in Nigeria. Let's just put it that way. It's over, nearly and over at the same time with faith. But during COVID time, persons with disability couldn't move from A to B because of close contact, because persons with disability needed help all the time. And if you're not someone who lives with a person with disability, whether you're blind, or you're deaf, or you use a wheelchair, you need someone. And if that person is a stranger, you're running the risk of catching COVID. And so therefore, the built environment isolated majority of persons with disability in their own world, and it made them feel alone. And so that was one thing that the built environment did for a lot of persons with disability. But another thing that it did was in communication. And so social media helped a lot in bridging that communication, that barrier, because a lot of us that wanted to go to a lot of meetings got to go through Zoom, got to go through all these social media platforms. And it helps a lot in balancing out everything that was negative about the physical built environment. The social media helped make it better. Thank you very much.
I think the first thing would be to get information. As a person with disability, knowing the society we live in and how inaccessible it can be, the first thing is get information before you go anywhere. Like when we had the Bold Hearts Hangout in Uyo, I had to go online, get pictures, images of the venue to see what the entrance looked like and how, the ladies with different types of disabilities would be able to access it. I had to do that because I couldn't just rely on, past information, see if they had, it was accessible. Get information before you even make any arrangements to step out. Make sure you have information. That's for buildings. Then for, vehicles, know the kind of vehicle you can enter. Like me, you cannot come and tell me to enter Keke, not now. As how? So that I will fall out and so, no. Where would they put me and where would they put my motor? So I just know. I respect myself and I know how I plan. If it's not possible for me to go there, I will just respect myself and decline whatever invitation. Tell you, I'm sorry, I cannot come unless you can make arrangements for me that is convenient. So get information. Secondly, don't be afraid to speak out. Because if you don't say what you need, people will not just know. Just like in the hospital, if I had just kept quiet and fell down, gotten up, dusted myself and continued, I would have kept falling from there until the day I break my head and end up in the emergency room. But because I spoke up, I'm not the only one benefiting from that ramp. And subsequently, other buildings in the hospital, they've also incorporated ramps because of that. So you don't be afraid to speak up, get information, and then ask, say what you need. Tell people what you need. Where you go to a place and the place is not convenient, if you didn't know before, inform them. Use that as an opportunity to advocate for a more accessible environment. Tell them, oh, people would benefit from doing this. I did it at the supermarket. And I insisted that during that COVID era, I told them I would not come there until they had made a ramp. That I didn't want people touching me and touching my wheelchair. And I didn't show up. I kept calling and insisted. I told them I can't come to your supermarket until I get a ramp. So that I can come there and only the person who is, I know it's just one person. And finally they did it. And going forward, other places have, adopted that. They make sure that even though the ramps are not exactly, to specification, but at least you can get in. So these are all these challenges are opportunities for us to advocate for better and more inclusive environments, and also to get the changes we need. But if you don't speak out, don't assume they know what you need. They don't. So you speak out and then you get information to arm you with the right kind of knowledge to be able to effect change.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I like the way you talked about getting information and how you went to visualize the environment before the meeting and everything went on. And also talked about putting your motor inside another motor. That's very funny. That's a great one. You're moving and downward. That's a serious one. So imagine those kind of transportation is something we really need to talk about. I think Freki has something to say on that.
Okay, I think coping with our built environment in Nigeria, you have to be very proactive and quite intentional about your environment. Else, you will find yourself secluded. The tendency to become secluded because you have seen that the environment is not very disability friendly is a reality for most persons with disabilities. So you have to be a bit proactive and intentional to, should I say, avoid seclusion as much and isolation as much as possible. So why am I saying this? You sometimes may find that an environment is not disability inclusive. At least I'm saying this for myself. And like Afion has expressed, I decided that I want to use this one as an example to advocate. So I intentionally go there so that they can experience, because sometimes when I'm explaining what I need on the phone to be able to access where they really need me to be, they're not getting it. I don't know, it's like you can't picture it. So sometimes I put myself out there in that uncomfortable situation and I make them see what I'm talking about, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now we get it. What can we do? And then they move forward with the solution. Sometimes, because it's for me, I say, there was a time when I decided that anybody who wants me somewhere, you want me to come and speak, want me to come and do something, I use a wheelchair. I mean, common sense, which is not common, should tell you that it should be accessible. And then I found that it doesn't always work that way. So sometimes I put myself in that position so that you can learn and make it better. Another thing I would like to say is this, apart from, you being intentional, being proactive, getting information, communicating your needs, is I would say learn what is currently, learn the new things. The world continues to evolve. So if the world is, for example, becoming digital, and the digital space can help bridge, the gap and help with issues that, the environment poses, it blows my mind why a person with disability would not be digitally inclined in today's world and be analog when you can be digital and it can solve a lot of problems. Let me give an instance. I have seen business women women with disabilities in business who keep complaining about things like, I don't have a shop, I cannot go to this, I can't do that. Now, I have a problem with that complaint because I know too many people who do not have a shop and their shop is domiciled in the social media space because they explored what is currently available and are taking advantage. So my point is this, as persons with disabilities, we need to explore what is available that can ease or can enable us to perform more highly within our environment, as it were. So these for me are some coping strategies. I have used them, they have worked and are still working. So thank you very much.
Amazing contributions. So still on that coping strategy, I always say, okay, if need be, if they are raised and you can use the raise, if it comes to staircases, use the raise. And those of us that use crutches, wherever you're moving, look at the holes, because there are holes in between the steps or a kind of pavement or a kind of slab. You will not know, and you just slip. And check the water, because the water and your crutches will always not agree. So these are smaller things you could just check in between the line where you cope, and when you cope with disability and the building and the building environment.
Okay, when you mentioned the water thing, I just remembered, and referring to the ramps, those terrible ramps. I just want to mention that if somebody insists because they have provided some 90 degrees ramp, you can politely decline using that ramp so that you don't become a statistic of toppling over and being an accident. That happened in church recently. They built a stage and then, they were very excited about being inclusive, but that ramp was a killer ramp. So, so we had to insist that no, nobody should use this ramp, but this ramp, something will happen. So I just wanted to chip that in there. Now, even when somebody, feels that they have provided access, if that access is not it will cause more harm than good. Please, a coping strategy is to politely decline and explain that their angle of incline is too high. Just, explain why, while yet this is here, it is not usable, so that they can do it better. Thanks.
Thank you. Affion, the question is, how can the built environment be improved on the role of society, private sector, and government? Let's tell them what to do. Since we keep on telling, let's keep on telling them what to do.
Yes, on the role of society, I think everybody can make an effort in their own personal space to ensure that if a person with a disability were to come to my house to visit me, and the person didn't have anybody to assist them, would the person be able to access my house? And also making sure that you if as much as possible, if you have persons with disability around you, recommending places that are inclusive and accessible, and also joining the advocacy, learning about ways you can become, you can help persons with disabilities to become more of a part of the society, instead of saying, oh, sorry, we cannot, this is how it is. By educating themselves, getting information, asking the persons with disabilities how they can help. We say a lot that, oh, we don't expect them to know, we don't expect them to, understand. But I believe you try to understand what you are interested in. So you don't wait until it happens to you. If you know persons with disability, we have them in our society. You can go out of your way to see how you can also help by informing other people, other members of society. This is how you can do this. Why not make this place like this so that somebody can access it? To private sector, in business places, and don't just assume that, oh, what will a person with a wheelchair or a blind person come and do here? Because I think that's the general misconception. So just make it accessible so that even a child crawling can crawl into your facility. It should not be limited. We don't have don't be narrow-minded about your clientele, because sometimes you go to even banks, your money is there. When you were transferring money there was no complaint about how you can enter. Your money got in, but you can't get in. And that often, I don't know, it annoys me to no end. Why is my money inside there and yet you don't make room for me? So, they come out and make a lot of excuses, and at the end of the day, nothing is done. And then for the government, for heaven's sake, you don't just write things on paper and don't get it done. You've said this thing, don't just sign it and make it look like you are not doing us a favor. All of us will get to a point where we will be disabled, whether by old age or by anything. Life happens to all of us. So let's be more intentional. 2023 is coming and you will make all manner of promises, and at the end of the day, nothing is done. These things, we talk about international best practices. These are things that are happening even in countries that have half the population we do. So why is it so hard? It's not affordability. It's not because we can't afford to. We have the resources, and there are simple solutions that are cost effective. You don't have to break the bank to make it happen. Because I know if the government wants to get certain things done that are even more expensive, that cost more, they will do it. They will enforce it if it affects them. So why is it so hard to ensure that every business, by the time someone comes to register their business, you go for a check, find out, is your business accessible to everybody? These are simple things that can be done, put in place. And before you know it, there's a ripple effect and it goes round. And then when it comes to transportation, you visit, these people are people who fly out of this country. For heaven's sake, do they suddenly shut their eyes when they are out there, that they don't see what's happening? You have public transportation that is tailored for persons with disabilities. You put them out there so that a person with disability can access it. Somebody like, for example, Truth. Frankie, you know Truth now. She was telling me recently when I asked her about how she gets to work at the airport. From town to the airport is like over a 3-hour journey. She says she has to fuel her car like twice a week from her own salary. Meanwhile, her other colleagues are being picked up at certain locations within town. But the bus is not accessible. She can't access it. So she has to be responsible for her transportation. I had to tell her, look, if everybody else is getting a free pass, there's nothing wrong with them making, provision for you. Talk to them and see how they can help you. Talk to them about how they can maybe give you a stipend to ease the burden of transportation. You can't be paying so much from your own salary for transportation when everybody else is getting a free ride to work. So these are some of the things that can be done. Simple things: get vehicles, position them, covering major areas where that persons with disabilities can easily access, so that they can get to wherever they need to. If you need to, regulate, transporters and see how they can also incorporate it into their practices to make it easy when persons with disabilities are traveling, so that you don't go to the park to enter a vehicle and everybody has access. No part of your anatomy is safe because everybody's grabbing you and trying to fling you inside. God knows. I don't know how that feels. So please, these are simple things that can be done.
Thank you very much. That was a very robust contribution, which it's over and over, keep on saying this. I will keep on saying it till it's been done.
I just say everything that Afyang has said is true, and the government should, not only the federal government, now state government should at least start small things, as in make things easier on the federal government to do, because we cannot always wait for the federal government to do everything. So, and also that individuals, private individuals too, can actually chip in, because like Afyang has said, disability is a part of life. It's part of the circle of life. People don't believe this, but truth be told, it is a part of the cycle of life. It's not like born, you grow, you work, you die. No, you are born, you are growing, you work, you have a disability along the way, and then you die. So I believe that private individuals should actually be more proactive in their own communities and try and be a part of what everybody is doing. Instead of leaving it all to the government, they should also do a part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're speaking to the role of the society, the private sector, and the public sector, that's the government, in ensuring that or working towards an environmental friendly or disability friendly environment. So I will start with society. Society has the family unit as its basic unit, and every person with disability belongs to one family or the other. So this is my take. I would say within families and that family space, try to make that environment disability friendly. Why am I saying it? It will surprise you that persons with disabilities still live in homes that are not accessible. I literally engaged or had a conversation with a young lady who told me that she cannot leave her room with her wheelchair without having to crawl on the ground to get to the parlor, because there are so many things on the corridor to the parlor. I asked her, has it always been like that? I said, yes. I said, is it because the things are useful? She said, hey, the house is just full and nobody is ready to clear the passageway. So most of the time, what happens is that she is stuck in her room because that veranda from her room to come out is blocked. So that, imagine somebody who lives in that kind of house with that kind of environment. She's not going to feel that she's worth anything because she's like in a prison. So within the family now, a space that a person with disability is living, if it is disability that is acquired later in life, there can be things done within that environment, that your living space. Please, families, let your buildings, your houses be accessible. At least let's even start with the person with disability living in your space. In my house, because I acquired disability later in life. So when I was a young adult, so they had to automatically start figuring out all the ramps when the parlor was higher than the dining, all those things that architects do. So they had to put ramps so that I can go anywhere in this house that I want to go to. And so imagine, I just want to put that out there because I noticed that it happens a lot in many homes, because that's how the place was, where if she would just manage, and it ought not to be so. So the family unit. Secondly is the larger society. I think, as I already said it, you see, disability, I think when I have this conversation, I put myself before and after, and I understand that it is possible that disability does not come on your radar as a human being throughout your lifestyle because you are not interacting with any person with disability or you have nothing to do with disability. But understand that learning is life. And if you are someone who has come across Bull TV or anything that has to do with disability, or you have come across any member of this unit, the co-hosts, and you have not taken any interest in learning a little about disability, then you're not a very good friend. That's my point. So learn disability. And when I mean learn disability, it is important because we come with a lot of negative stereotypes and perspectives that have to do with disability from things we you would still think that because the person is on a wheelchair, that the person should not touch you because it is contagious. You know, that kind of thinking blows the mind, but it still exists. But if you intentionally learn disability, you will better respond to disability. You would not think that disability is a curse. You will not think disability or a person with disability should be relegated to outside, or it should be an afterthought. Coming to the private sector is a very important sector because it's a sector where a lot of business happens within our country. You serve a wider public than persons who are without disability. Persons with disabilities are also your clients, and serving the public as a person in the private sector would mean that you too need to be inclusive. I also want to speak to persons in the third sector, that's the NGO sector. I think we still think that interventions that we do sometimes need to be disability specific. Not so. You may have an intervention for women. Why not have and ensure that part of the women that you are having an intervention for are women with disabilities? They're waiting for a special program for women with disabilities, which may not be signed off by a funding partner. So let's be inclusive in our interventions within the third sector. And finally, the last sector, which is the government. Dear government, Ejo, we don't know what to say again. Like, we don't know. We cannot say we don't know. And that person, my God, who is coming to declare for 2023 and does not have an inclusion strategy, you have started failing. You better have one. You stand there and you have a manifesto. You better be talking something inclusion and disability in your manifesto. And persons with disabilities who are in the political space, let me explain that politics is not just when a person with disability now takes a political office. It means that that person, whether person with disability or person with disability without disability that you are supporting, has a disability inclusion strategy in that their manifesto. Whether they will do it or not, like, let them say it so that we can play the video and show them that they said it. But 2023, government, local government, whatever level, top to bottom, make sure, try and have an inclusion. That word has passed, where you just come and be talking plenty, you come and do projects, no one is inclusive. No, we need 2023 to have inclusive governments. Finally, let me say this specific one. Dear Surveyor General, there is a Surveyor General in every state. You have a big office. Dear sir, dear ma, in every state, you sign off on buildings and construction work at state level. You are still signing buildings that are public buildings that are not inclusive. Sir and ma, please, you are wrong. Dear Commissioner or Minister of Urban Planning, my God, you are still signing off on plans that are not inclusive. Somebody will bring a building, Koro, and that building is a public service building, and there is absolutely no plan for access. You are still signing off. Dear sir, dear man, please, you are wrong. So I'm doing this direct thing. Ministry of Urban Planning, we need to do better. Dear TEF Fund, your buildings are new, they are nice in most universities, but they are not accessible. You can do better. So this is my own advocacy right now, telling people directly what they can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that great contribution. Amazing contributions. The ladies have all said it all. More than once. We keep on saying and keep on shouting it. And in my own voice, I'll just say the word at large should just be considerate. The truth is that when someone that needs something, you somehow your instinct just tell you that person might need help. So just see how come or how much or how far you could assist that person in your own way. forget about the big set and every other thing. A lot of people come and they're in your space and they're just standing or they're trying to get them and they're like wondering. Just ask, please, what do you help or why can I help you? That can help. That can cut across everybody as we're talking about.
While we are on the name calling train, I don't know why Ministry of Social Welfare. I don't know why they think welfare only refers to sharing rice and asking me doing empowerment. Why can't they make sure that they liaise with the different ministries that are responsible, like for roads, for transportation? Why can't they liaise and tell them, look, let's look at your agenda. What are your plans for my people? Why can't they do that? Is that too much to ask? Is that not part of our welfare? Is it only to give us rice and vegetable oil when it comes to whenever? Is that too much to ask? Why can't they be proactive enough to? That does not cost anything. At least if they have these plans in place and know that these are things, they can now take it to the government when they are presenting budgets and say, look, that this is what we think is more important to us. And if there's any way you can support us in this area, because the government will not know everything. So why can't they move from, they've been stuck in one position? And that's why that ministry has remained where it is. Because they're not proactive, they're not doing anything more. What makes them think sharing rice and vegetable is the only thing welfare is about? Why can't they liaise with key parastatals, key or other key ministries that affect persons with disabilities and find out how can we work together to make sure that the people that we are, representing are more included, have access. These are some of the things they should do for us, and not just wait until when they give them 5 naira and they now come and share who is going to get 50 kobo. They are not helping us because they have given the government the impression that welfare, when it comes to persons with disability, welfare stops in sharing palliatives. That's all. They can't do anything more. So these are some of the things they can do for us, like work together with other partner ministries, transportation, education, find out how can we make sure that you people are more inclusive? How can we make sure that persons with disabilities have access to what you offer? How can you make sure that when you're drawing up your budget and, presenting your agenda for, each budget year, each fiscal year, you let the government know that these are new things that we are trying to incorporate, that we need schools, we need sign language interpreters for some of our schools. We need buses and commercial vehicles that can attend to persons with disabilities. Put them and have bus stops that are disability friendly, accessible, so that persons with disabilities know they can go there and then get to where they need to. And you liaise with all these different ministries and make sure you go to Ministry of Labor and Employment, tell them we are entitled to 5%. What's going on? How many people have you taken this year? How many people have you employed in each employment cycle? These are the things they can do for us. Instead of just sitting down waiting until they give them money to share or to buy rice and share. We don't tire. We don't want Jedi, I beg.
Dear Special Advisor to the Governor on Disability, hello. I know it is a political appointment. You are a fellow person with disability. You put it on social media and you stop there. Oh my God. Your duty is more than that. You cannot just come and announce that you are now SSA to the Governor on Disability Affairs and it ends there. I refuse that for you. As a disability advocate that you were before, because most persons who end up in that position are visible when it comes to disability issues. You cannot lose your voice when you get into that office. Yours is to advise, so find a way to advise the governor so that he's more inclusive. I'm saying this because it happened that in this regime that is about to finish, there was something that happened. Many more SSAs, many more special advisors to the governor on disability affairs were nominated. But their impact, there are few states that I can say that the impact was felt in the disability community. It is not a feather added to your cap or a social media post. Do the work of advising, find access, but be able to ensure that before you take on that position and say, yes, sir, that you have a plan, that you have an agenda. I know it looks as if, well, we're just calling in, but my God, we are tired of hearing that things are happening, because this is what happens when we meet the government and they say, oh, we created this now, we have done this now. It backfires in the end because we do not see these things and these spaces that they created having any impact in the disability world. So SSA to Governor on Disability Affairs. Please now, please. Thank you very much.
The last question is, how can PWDs contribute to improve their built environment? Don't get tired of advocacy. How can we do it our own way now? How can we improve on the trying to see how we can make the disability environment, built environment better for us? So stay on our disability and the built environment. We're going to wrap up with our last question and our last contribution on this same topic. It's a robust one. We'll really dig it out. People are listening. I hope you're watching. We're going to share this video episode as far as much as we can so that people will hear. And those in government, and the new government is coming, they have to learn, they have to see, they have to watch, they have to know what to do, and not just sit on that seat.
Thank you, Osaki, for that question. How we can make the built environment better for us is one, by speaking about things that we do not understand about the built environment, making things better, telling those who can help us, like when a ramp is dangerous, like how Frecky said the ramp in church was at a dangerous place, and she respectfully declined and said it was dangerous. How we can make them understand, and like how you spoke, how every single one person here has spoken about making things easier, not only for persons with disability now, but for everybody inclusive. So that is one way. We can also create our own tiny little help that we can give into the built environment, making things better, educating everyone about disability, making sure people understand what it means to be disabled, understanding how your specific disability affects you. When people are around you, you talk about it and you explain it to everybody in a way that they can understand.
By insisting on getting what they rightfully deserve. Let's say, for example, you belong to a group, like I belong to a group at work, and recently they had a meeting, and the meeting is always upstairs. And they told me, you didn't come for meeting, and I was like, how? How? Last I checked, I don't have wings. I cannot fly. Neither do I have superpowers. They were like, okay, we'll add you to the WhatsApp. I say, fine, please add. So now what I'm planning to do is go back and tell them that if people are planning to vote for anything, you cannot vote in my absence. You must make sure I am given time to go through whatever you have discussed, the resolutions, and then I give my vote before you can agree on it. Yes, because they will assume, oh, sorry, yeah, we know you cannot come, so we decided to decide for you. No, we do not agree. So insist on what you know you rightfully deserve. Do not assume, don't take it that just because somebody built something or did whatever that they have done you a favor. Nobody's doing anybody any favors. So say what you want and make sure it is done the way you want it done. If it is not, please not done that way. Politely tell them, please, sorry, this does not work for me.
Thank you very much for the question. I'll just keep it simple. A person with disability can continue to speak up when you come across an environment or a structure or something that causes inaccessibility to a person with disability. Keeping quiet, trying to just manage. Well, you can manage sometimes, but sometimes you may need to insist. Because once you open up that place, you do not just open it up for yourself, you open it up for other people. So sometimes when something happens and you see a person with disability insisting on their rights, I find it sad that even persons within the disability community will now be saying, why is she shouting? Can't she just manage? And I'm like, what are you talking about? This was done, against this person. The person was not able to access this and access that. And now she's speaking and trying to speak for her rights. And you who should understand better, you're saying, can't you just mind that sometimes we do the shout, there's not everything we should be shouting. And yes, and that has happened before within the disability space. With disability who has a right and has been denied access in this man-made environment, and the person has decided to authority in gaining access, we within the disability community should support that person so that the person can go all the way. Because if that person has a victory, it is a victory for everyone. So let's be advocates of our own cause. Let's continue to speak up. And if you find yourself in any position that you can affect change, please affect change positively. Thank you.
So in my own quote, I would say, let's just don't get tired. Advocacy is for life. Let's continue as much as we can. Keep on the advocacy, join support groups, support one another as much as we can, share information, because those are things that can help to contribute in built environment. So this program comes to you every Saturday, 10 a.m. And we still ask if you want to sponsor, partner with us. I'll let the ladies in the house to unmute their mic and say happy anniversary, our 2nd year anniversary, and whatever they want to say, so that we can go for today.
We are here to stay. We don't care. We are here to stay.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to
Happy
us.
anniversary.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to us.